If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum leadership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. I love Anchor because it's really easy to use, very accessible to record your podcast, and has excellent sound quality. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello, I am Jennifer Lynn Purcell, aka Opportunity Butterfly, bringing to you a living with an invisible learning challenge where we will discuss the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD. I don't know if you're a new listener or not, but I would like to share with you where I get most of my articles for this podcast. I've recently learned about a nonprofit that I would really like to help. It's the NVLD project. In addition to doing research on NVLD and working to get it back on the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, that is the DSM, they provide support groups for those with NVLD. You can find the NVLD project at www.nvld.org. All proceeds from this podcast and the ads will go towards the NVLD project. I will include the link for this in the description of the podcast. Please go to livingwithnld.com to learn more about my podcast. Also, I would like to announce that I now have created a YouTube channel for this podcast. I will post the link for this in the description for you. In today's podcast, we'll discuss what it is like to do mental math with NLD. Following is an article from the NVLD project titled Conquering Math with NVLD by Michaela, who is a, quote, a lover of nature, poetry, and iced coffee. In her humble opinion, it's the only coffee that is truly worth drinking. She is naturally extroverted and is a people person. She is studying to become a social worker because she wants to be able to help individuals with learning disabilities just like her. She is a project social ambassador for the NVLD project, end quote. According to Michaela, quote, my whole life, math has made me anxious. It was not only my hardest subject, but at times it felt like my worst enemy. In elementary school and middle school, I managed to obtain decent final grades in math class because of my extremely consistent work habits and nightly homework help from my mom. However, as I got older, at times there was only so much my mom could do to help, end quote. I can definitely relate to Michaela because I used to struggle with math all the time in middle school, high school, and college. The only way I did well is if I had an individual tutor and they were willing to help or spend many hours with me. When we were skiing, I remember that my family and I would recite multiplication tables on chairlifts. This really helped because it made it easier for me to remember how to do simple parts of bigger math problems. It also involved memorization, which I knew I was good at. And for those who don't know this was before I knew I had NLD. I can remember when I had to retake statistics at Miramar College. It wasn't easy because there was only one tutor there. He wasn't there until later in the day. Usually I was able to figure out the answer on my own by researching the answers online or retaking the test several times until I got all of them right. I was so proud of myself when I saw that I got a B in that class because I knew I had basically done all the work on my own. Today I can do math in my head a lot faster than I used to. This is true because of all the practice my parents and tutors gave me with doing that same thing. I wouldn't have the strong math skills I have now if I hadn't had the help from my tutors and parents. I want to thank all of my tutors that I had in school and my parents for helping make this difference easier than it used to be for me. Because I can remember I used to have tears in my eyes when I would do math in school, and that doesn't happen today anymore. So thank you. Whenever we play a card game called May I in my family, I get to practice my math skills by adding up everyone's scores. Or for joy. I do it in my head, and I only use the calculator to check my work. It's easier than it used to be because I group it in by 5s and 10s, which is a trick that my dad taught me. I also taught myself a trick that if I have the number 9, I can pretend that it is 10, then take away 1 from my answer. For example, if I had 19 and I wanted to add 9 to it, it would be 10 plus 19, which equals 29, but it's actually 9 plus 19, so it's 20. So it's really 28. Hope that makes sense and is easier for you. The NBLD project suggests for students that have challenges with math, quote, use language to describe every step explicitly. Students should use their verbal skills to narrate all math procedures. Always show sample problems on top of homework or a test. Use consistent spatial arrangement of items in math problems, end quote. I think these are really good tips because it tells the teacher or tutor exactly how to help the student with math and in what specific areas. This makes it easier for both the teacher and the student. In that way, they're not trying to guess how to help each other out. Here is an article that presents 14 ways to help a student with NBLD to succeed in school, and I will highlight a few here. Quote, 1, train faculty and staff. All those who come in contact with these kids must be able to recognize the academic and social behaviors related to NLD. These are kids who ask a lot of questions, have difficulty with transitions, get lost in the hallway, or fail to recognize the face of someone they see every day. 2, monitor progress and problems. Share a teacher-parent journal that goes back and forth between school and home several times a week. 3, keep a set of school books at home. Assuming that your child with NLD has the executive functioning skills necessary to gather everything he'll need or she'll need at the end of the day adds stress to the transition from school to home. Shorten homework assignments for every 10 pages of homework normally assigned. A child with NLD might only be able to get through 1 or 2, as the time and effort expended will be the same. While this suggestion should be adapted specifically to each child's abilities, the point is to have the child do enough homework to reinforce learning without becoming overloaded. 5, prepare and preview. Work with the classroom teacher to find an effective system to have new material given to your child at least 1 week in advance. Children with NLD often do best when allowed to gradually immerse themselves in new material until they feel comfortable. 6, pair your child with a classroom buddy. I think that's a really good suggestion. The buddy can fill in missing class notes and explain the pacing of long-term projects. Since this might be the beginning of a friendship, give careful consideration to choosing the partner. 7, maintain ongoing social skills training. People with NLD have difficulty understanding cause and effect relationships and cannot anticipate the consequences of their actions. And this can create problems when these children are forced to adjust to rapidly changing social demands. If the school cannot offer a trained professional, insist that they provide one from outside the system. End quote. What I like about these is that they're really specific, and they also suggest that you provide a homework helper to the student, which I know and really like, because it would have helped me if I had that. And like I said, I had tutors in school because I was homeschooled, and my parents were able to provide that to me because my mom, as some of you may know, she is a minister, so she had access to a congregation of people that were maybe retired teachers or older adults or teens that were really good in a subject that I wasn't good at. So they were willing to help me. And so that's who I got, who were my tutors. And some of them were actually still teaching when they were teaching me. So that's who was tutoring me. And that really helped me in my academic life. So what I wanted to tell you about that, because like the article said, if you help that student out who has NLD with some of the steps it was mentioning, you're going to be able to help them do better by, like if you have a set of textbooks at school and at home, then you don't have to lug them back and forth. And then you also can, maybe have the same notes in each of them, and also be able to, not forget that you forgot them at school one day, and then, oops, I can't do my homework because I forgot them at school. That might happen. So as I wrap up, I would like to ask the audience what challenges you usually run into when you're trying to do math with NLD, or when you're trying to help someone who has NLD with math. If you're listening on livingwithnld.com, please comment on this episode with the answer to those questions, or you can email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com with the answer. If you listen on Spotify, that's where you can email me. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review with the answer, or you can email me also. And in conclusion, I would like to hear from my audience. If you know individuals with NLD that I can interview for this podcast, please let me know. That would be extremely helpful. Also, I would like to know what you are interested in learning about NLD. I know I'm not an expert, but I do know that I have the living experience of having it. I would like you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences to see if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier to do than it originally was. And I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something new today. And I will talk to you next Friday on Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. Bye. As I wrap up, there are some things I would like to share with you. I do have a website for this podcast. It is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page for this podcast. It is called Living with NLD. I will include the links for those in the description. In conclusion, I would like to hear from my audience. If you know individuals with NLD that I could interview for this podcast, please email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com. What are you interested in learning about NLD? I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having it. I would like you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences, Also, see if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier for you to do than it originally was. Thank you for listening today, and please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to it. Thank you. Bye.